Hello and welcome to Organic Edible Garden. It's been an interesting week. A hungry squad of possums have come through and decided they like my broccoli leaves. It's not a problem because they're just about finished, but it's important to remember I should keep them covered until they're ready to eat. Also at this time of year, the garlic is starting to size up. They're getting nice fat stems. It's really important also that you keep it weeded because they don't like to compete with the weeds. And if they're not sizing up yet, a good top dressing of something like a rock dust would really help with that. And then this is the bed that we started to dig over last week, and it's the bed we're going to put our root crops in. Full moon's a great time to put in your root crops because it's a phase that all the energy goes back into the roots of the plant. The garden bed's been well prepared, and we've actually just tilled it over lightly. The soil is nice and fluffy, which is really important for your root crops because they need to get their roots down quite deep. There's a lot of good stuff in these beds that will help size up our roots. We've put our rock dust and everything else in. However, if you feel that your root crops aren't sizing up fast enough, you can have other additives. You can use things like fireplace ash. This does help, but remember it's really alkalining the soil. Now, when we did our soil test last week, we had a pH of 7, so we do not want to add this to it. So this will go straight into the compost bin. Another really good option you can use for your root crops is blood and bone. It's phosphorus you need to size up your roots, and blood and bone has got nitrogen and phosphorus only. There's no potassium, which is for your fruiting crops. So a good sprinkling around your beetroot and other rooting crops is really good. The plants I'm putting in these beds are a quick turnaround root crop. I want them ready in about 8 to 10 weeks, and then it'll come out and it'll be a late zucchini bed. That's why I'm not planting things like my carrots or parsnips, which take 3 to 4 months to mature. So in a bed like this, I can put things like my fennel, I'm going to put in some companion plants as well, just for the beneficial insects. I'm going to put in some baby onions. Now normal onions would take a long time to mature, but these are just like little purpulette onions that are great for salads, and they're ready in about 10 weeks. I'm going to put in some things like some turnips and some daikon radish. And finally, we're going to put a whole lot of beetroot in the garden. This is bulbul Florence fennel, and we're going to plant it this part of the garden because it's not a good companion for any other garden plant. We're also going to put a barrier of companion flowers between it so it doesn't affect them. Now with your fennel, it's also really important that you've got a deep soil because the taproot goes about 1.5 feet long. And if you're doing it in the pot or a really shallow garden, they're never really going to size up that well. And the last thing to remember, there are 2 types of fennel. This is a summer fennel or warmer winter fennel, which is great for springtime planting. But during winter, make sure you have the winter types or the Milano types. So we're going to pop these guys all out. And we're going to plant them about 15 to 20 centimeters apart. They don't take a lot of room. Next, I'm going to put some companion plants in. In this case, I'm using dianthus for a few reasons. One, they're not going to get so tall and they won't outshadow the fennel as it grows. 2, they've got great flowers that will attract all the beneficial insects and bees. And thirdly, their flowers are edible. Next, we're going to go and put in these baby onions. These are more like spring onions with a small bulb in. So when I plant them, I want to plant them in clumps of say 3 or 4, because when I use them for salads, that's how much I'll take out at a time. So I'll probably put the clumps in about 10 centimeters apart. They can all grow even closer, but I just want to give them as much air movement. If you find that the root system on them are too big, you can actually just chop part of them off with the scissors anyway. And next we're going to put in some seeds. You can use a stick, but I'm just using the front of the iwashi to make some rows. I'm going to plant some daikon, which is great for Asian dishes, and plant some turnips, great for the spring salads. I'm just going to sprinkle these by hand, but I'm not going to put them in too thick. Previously we put so many in too thick and it just takes so much separation. So probably each row, probably about 20 or 30. Okay, we're just going to lightly cover these furrows now. And when we water the bed, that'll do the rest. And finally we're going to put our beetroot in. Instead of seeds, we're going to put mature plants in and some baby beets in. I just want these to get along and have a good start. And lastly, I'm going to stick in some baby beets. These are basically the same as the big beets, but I'm going to plant them really close together, and I'm going to use every second one until the other size up. And with this many beets in a punnet, I want to separate them first. So I'm going to stick them in a tub of water. All it needs is a bit of a shake to get the soil off, and then they become bare rooted. And then what I'll do is I'll get my trusty old dibbler, make some holes and put them in. I'm going to put them in really close together, and I'll probably harvest them about the size of a golf ball. This is a variety called Detroit, which has a tendency to size up much quicker than other types. And if I have too many, I can also use the leaves in salads. Until now we haven't bothered watering when planting our new seedlings, but since the ground is drying out now, we're going to give them all a good watering. And finally, when we're on about root crops, it's time to think about getting your potatoes ready for planting. We're not going to put these guys in now for two reasons. One, if we get a lot of rain and we dig furrows in the soil and put them in, they can rot. And secondly, when they do germinate and we get a late frost, it'll burn off the tops. So we're going to wait another month before we plant these guys, but we want them strong when they go in the ground. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a bath of seaweed solution, and we're just going to dip them in there. And we'll probably dip them 3 or 4 times, once a week before we plant them. This will make them so much stronger when they grow. We want the solution about 100 to 1, but it can't be too strong. Now we've got a couple types of potatoes here. These are Cliff's Kidney, and they're an early potato. They'll be ready way before Christmas, but they're a waxy potato, so they're great in salads or just boiling. I'm also going to put some starchy potatoes in. These are agrias, and they make the best roast potatoes or chips, so they'll go in at the same time. And finally, while we've got the solution there, we're going to add our kumara. We're going to get it going. Although it's later and it's more tropical, it's starting to sprout. So putting in the seaweed solution will help them as well. I'll leave these guys in here for about a half an hour, and then I'll put them on my egg cartons, which I've already labelled. These egg cartons will go in a non-direct sunlight area in the house, just where it's nice and warm, and they'll grow even better. Then I'll repeat the same process again in another week.